Whoa, sorry. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mike Hostetler. I'm the founder and CEO of Append2. We're a company formed out of the jQuery project, and we'll be talking today about jQuery Mobile alongside Jason Scott.
I'm Jason Scott. I work for Research in Motion, and I'm also a core committer on the jQuery Mobile project. So today we're going to be talking about what is jQuery Mobile, the tooling and the ecosystem around jQuery Mobile, and most specifically about the BlackBerry 10 theme and how you can start using the jQuery Mobile with the theme to make awesome applications for BlackBerry 10.
Very cool. So I want to first, for those who don't know or maybe not familiar, dive into jQuery Mobile, what it is, theory behind the project, and we'll give a brief overview before we get into the BlackBerry side of things. So first, it's important to kind of understand, my mic's a little bit hot, getting some feedback. Understand how this project came about. It was early May 2009 when the jQuery project realized that they needed a mobile solution, right? And sat around the table, thinking about it. At the time, there was a lot of different browsers out there, and we recognized that mobile was going to be a big deal, so we started planning. When you look into the numbers, it's really kind of amazing that mobile is available to a large portion of the world's population. The fun statistic is that it's actually available to more people than reliable electricity, which is, kind of a brain teaser when you think about it. And there'll be 10 billion mobile devices. Now, we're talking tablets, we're talking smartphones, we're talking other sort of hybrid mobile devices. But 10 billion units is going to absolutely dwarf any sort of hardware target device that we've ever seen in computing. And the funny thing is, at the time when this project was planned in 2009, the iPhone was the big thing. Like, we're talking, iPhone 3 is the latest and greatest. It had maps that worked, and everybody was targeting mobile Safari. And the worry was, if you target one browser, you're going to repeat the mistakes that we made with IE6. So we don't want to do that. But it's kind of funny that Android's becoming this sort of the bane of our existence as mobile developers, and because the device ecosystem has gotten so fragmented. So, we needed a solution to fix this. The other key point to emphasize is people have expectations for how the web should work. We have a consumer base. People have used the internet, and they expect certain things from their browsers, from the experience that they get when they hit a URL. They want it to work, right? They don't understand all of the differences between native and hybrid and web only. They don't know what HTML5 is, but they have an expectation that it should work. And as developers, we need to at least be aware of that and find a way to sort of meet those expectations. So that was the problems that we sort of defined at this meeting we had in 2010, and the solution that was birthed out of it was jQuery Mobile, with fancy new logo, by the way. Just came out, updated my slide deck. Thanks, Ralph. So jQuery Mobile was born out of the idea that one code base could target multiple platforms. And again, you got to kind of rewind. A lot's happened in just 2 short years, a little over 2 years. The platforms that were available, Windows Phone didn't quite exist. Android was in its glory days of Android 2. Symbian and MeeGo, Palm, but actually it was purchased by HP by then. But WebOS, was still closed source. So there's a lot of different platforms. The game was, how do we target all of these different things? And how do we do it with standards, right? I think the people behind the standards push have really made a lot of progress in getting us all thinking in standards, but that wasn't the case 2 years ago. And then how do we build it on top of jQuery core? And actually a huge first portion of the project was getting jQuery core working on these mobile platforms. So what ended up happening is the idea of graded browser support or targeted browser support came out. We wanted it to meet this goal of working on multiple platforms. And so as we started investigating these platforms, we kind of organized them into 3 categories. Starting at the most basic, this is your old Nokia phones. Some of the old Nokia phones with Symbian had a browser. It was, rendered HTML4. It was really, really bad. It didn't do JavaScript. CSS was non-existent, but it was a browser. And so it needed something that could interpret and work well with basic HTML. That was your C grade browsers. Then medium-term browsers that could deal with JavaScript, those got thrown into the B grade browser bucket where they could navigate back and forth with Ajax. And then you have your class of modern browsers, which has your CSS3 page transitions, your Ajax loading support, and could almost take this web experience and with a little fine tuning make it similar to a native app experience. So the other key here, and this was a very important to sort of understand where the project is coming from, was that it was intended to be this unified experience that didn't target a single platform. Sat down, again, at the time, dominant smartphone browsers were with sort of the modern WebKit browsers at the time were Android OS and the iPhone, and they each had different paradigms of browsing. The Android platform had hardware back buttons, that sort of thing. So we wanted to try to design it with an eye towards a unified experience across all of these different platforms, future facing as well, that would sort of brand it as jQuery Mobile and work on these different phones. And the other key thing, PhoneGap at the time was very new, right? It was a fledgling project by a small company out of Vancouver that wasn't purchased by Adobe yet, and we wanted to make sure that it compiled to native and you use it in as many places as possible. So jQuery Mobile does work well with PhoneGap, and they both live happily together. So let's jump into learning a little bit more about jQuery Mobile and how it works. First thing, just like jQuery, you have to go download the code. jQuery Mobile is hosted on GitHub. So if you've not been out to GitHub yet, take a look. Go to jQuery Mobile, github.com, jQuery/jQuery Mobile. Pull down the source code. There's downloads available there. They're also available on jQueryMobile.com for download. And they're also on the typical jQuery CDN places. So Microsoft hosts a CDN, jQuery hosts a CDN, and I think they're also on the Google CDN. So not on the jQuery Mobile's not on the Google CDN. Okay, Google doesn't think it's important enough yet. So when you're stepping into jQuery Mobile, the way it sort of meets those goals that we talked about was organizing things into this concept of pages. A single page is very, very straightforward and simple. You start with just basic HTML. You don't have to write any JavaScript. You just HTML5 doc type, standard HTML sections, and your body tag. This is the beginning of your jQuery Mobile app. And there, you got to add your script tags. So start with jQuery Mobile CSS. jQuery Mobile, just like jQuery UI, comes with a CSS file to style the different elements. It is an old version. So start with your CSS file. Don't take a picture of that, Ralph. You then drop in jQuery Core. So jQuery Core is needed to work for jQuery Mobile, and then you drop in jQuery Mobile afterwards. So, sorry, I'll go back to it. You can speed through that page. You can find the download links on jQueryMobile.com. No tweeting during this talk. So starting with your basic page, jQuery Mobile, because of those design goals, leans heavily on using markup to sort of configure its page. if you notice, they start with a basic div tag, but the data role attribute, data role equals page, is sort of how it pulls off this magic of targeting all these different platforms. It's very subtle. It's almost so subtle that if you gloss over it, you would miss it. But what happens behind the scenes is as you start with that page, you load jQuery mobile at the top. Upon page initialization, it'll go look for these data role tags and then sort of progressively enhance your page. Now, that's great if you have a browser that can support that stuff. But go back to our graded browsers thing. B-grade browsers may not fully support or understand the HTML5 attributes of data-tags. Now, that's really nice because old browsers were built to just safely ignore that stuff, right? You could pretty much put anything in there and it would just ignore it, and that's fine. Again, going to your C-grade browsers, it renders it and doesn't even care. So you'll still get, you know how if you took your CSS off the page when you're developing for IE6, IE7, and if you needed to do any sort of accessibility stuff, you still wanted a usable page. Same sort of thing happens here. As you target older browsers, it'll degrade because you're using this data-role technique. That's sort of the cornerstone that most of jQuery mobile is built upon. And there's a lot of different roles that tags can play, and we'll see that play out. So basic page, after you've started with sort of the page container containing tag, you can then add elements in the middle of that. So on this, we've got a data role header, includes a back button, it's got a title up there. Then data role content is sort of your lighter themed pieces in the middle. We've got, you know, a title, a little bit of a paragraph with a link in it, maybe some input controls, toggle controls, buttons, and then data role footer has the thing at the bottom. And each of these have qualities that mimic sort of some of the native app experiences. So you can tell a header as you scroll, you know, don't scroll the header with the rest of the content, stuff like that. The documentation for jQuery mobile goes into all of these different roles in much greater detail. Quickly want to talk about links and navigation. The way jQuery mobile ended up handling links was trying to get close to what we would expect from a native app experience. So normal links are fine. Simple anchor tag, pop over to jQuery.com. It'll actually navigate away. And jQuery mobile is smart enough to know if you're navigating off the domain that you're on, it'll just, you know, just like a normal browser, pop over. But when you navigate to a local file, click on your first element here. We've got a list view extending that data role idea towards what a list view looks like. We've got a couple of different theming things here. When you navigate to that relative sort of local link, jQuery mobile has a feature called link hijacks, or this the idea where it doesn't do a full browser, mobile browser refresh. The way it does that is it actually takes your page. So we're on index.html. It does an AJAX call behind the scenes, loads up jQuery.html, and then again, this is off screen. So this is, you know, that page doesn't exist. You wouldn't be able to see it. It's sort of in memory. And then it does this transition, right? When you're in a native experience, the transition, you can transition to different views. jQuery mobile tries to mimic the same thing and uses CSS3, uses a bunch of different techniques to handle this transition. We're doing a simple slide here, but it'll take and load that content and slide it in from the right. Complete the transition, and then it dumps index.html out of your DOM, and by using AJAX, it loads that page in. You don't have to suffer through that full browser, mobile browser refresh. It changes the URL for you, so that new page is bookmarked correctly using HTML5 push state. It sort of handles all that for you in a very elegant, very smooth way. And then there's also the ability to do, sort of work with additional transitions. We already went over the external links thing. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about jQuery's ecosystem and the project has grown to the point where there's some pretty cool tools out there to work with jQuery mobile apps. So can we go to the laptop, number 3? So the first tool we're gonna look into is called Codica. Codica is built by 2 guys out of Madison, Wisconsin. I'm from Wisconsin, so go Badgers. 2 guys at my alma mater, so pretty cool. Codica is a tool that helps you quickly create and mock up interfaces. So what we're looking at here is your basic, once you sign up for Codica, it pops you in. We have a palette here on the left, and then a details pane here on the right with our device in the center. I've got so far a header section. Behind the scenes, my markup is data role dash header, and then I've got a data role dash content. Here, this white section in the middle, that's our default. And then I've got a data role dash footer down here. So we're going to demo this really quick. And I am going to, see, we've got our footer, just because, where's put my thing in here. We're going to recreate Google Maps, Madison, Wisconsin. And maybe put a list down here. Again, all I'm doing is just clicking and dragging these elements onto our canvas. Canvas not being HTML5 canvas, but our pane. You can change the device sizes, move to different devices, mock these things out for tablets. I'm going to make a divider here. We skipped over a lot of the potential controls that jQuery Mobile offers. They're all documented on jQueryMobile.com, but they mimic a lot of the native widgets. So places, then we can add, for instance, right? And you can throw things on our map. And then we'll remove this footer element off. So once you've mocked out what your app what you want it to look like, and once you've sort of wireframed out your idea, you can actually just pop right over here to a preview pane, go through it. We didn't wire this up, but design, and then it writes all your markup for you. So behind the scenes, all this did, which it's a big step, but it's an important step. Here we've got our data role dash page. So that sets up our first sort of container element. Our data role header. So there's our header element. There's the text we put in. It's just a simple semantic tags. Here's our H1 tag for the page. Data role content. I threw in a Google Maps this is just a static placeholder, but again, this is made for sort of rapid prototyping, wireframing. And then our list view for navigating lists of data and handling lists of data. In this case, our transition, we didn't mark it up to go anywhere, but you could add multiple pages and transition between multiple pages if I wanted to go to the sushi page. And the cool thing is when you do that, and then we're going to say, just throw an image in there. So save that. Going back to our first page, do our thing here, linked page, and then we preview it. All of a sudden, there's our transition, just like that. And you're able to sort of rapidly move through your app. Really, really slick to sort of get ideas out there. If you're trying to convince your boss to use jQuery Mobile, it's a great tool, right? It shows them. I just threw a website together up here in like 3 minutes. It's pretty crazy. So, cool thing, and we didn't talk about this too much, but you can actually have all those pages in the same DOM fragment. jQuery offers a lot of performance optimizations and will allow you to really have a very flexible interface for building out these mobile apps. So that's Codica. I really encourage you to go take a look into it, dive into it a little bit more. They've got a free trial available. But if you're going to be doing and building these apps, right, it's an indispensable tool to sort of just bootstrap you and get you started. So that's one of the cool tools that's come out. The next one is one that's been put out by the jQuery project itself called Theme Roller. So if you've used jQuery UI, jQuery UI had this concept of a CSS theme framework. So when widgets are created with markup wired up with events in JavaScript, there needed to be a way to style those widgets and customize those styles. Well, Theme Roller was born where you could go in and, with some color swatches, change up the style really easily. Well, the same idea was brought into Theme Roller, and a lot of work was put into the theming framework or the theming concepts behind jQuery Mobile. Cool thing here is we saw this a little bit on Codica, but there's ways to create your theme, package and bundle that theme with your jQuery Mobile CSS file, and then ship that out with your application, and then sort of custom style your theme elements on the page piece by piece. So if I wanted to make a theme, all I've done is I've navigated to jQueryMobile.com/themeroller, pulls up this interface, and I can then switch to, here's our latest version. I really like red. I'm just going to drag, and I'm going to drop that color right onto my sample application. And behind the scenes, it is managing and working with a CSS file that if I do want to go download that zip, I can download it and immediately push it into my application, and it will look like that. So pretty cool ideas. You could play around with this, write things in. This is looking really terrible, almost like a McDonald's advertisement, but that's why I'm not a designer. jQuery Mobile offers the ability to add up to 32 themes in a given project and work with 32 different themes. So really powerful to use. Again, if you're not a designer, you want to get something out there, this is a great way to get started and sort of dip your toes in the water. Your designers on staff will actually find jQuery Mobile to be really delightful as well, because even though this is sort of for the non-designer crowd, it is very, very customizable in terms of interactions, in terms of sort of the flexibility of the framework behind the scenes. So much so that what Jason's now going to talk about is BlackBerry put together its own custom theme for jQuery Mobile to style many of the elements to look like the new native elements in BB10, which is a remarkable achievement. It is really, really cool. So what this will now allow you to do, which he's going to demo, but you'll be able to build a jQuery Mobile application, throw in your BB10 theme, and it will work and look very similar to a native app. So
Exactly.
yeah, very cool. So we'll go back to
one, please.
Back to one.
Thanks, Mike. So as Mike was saying, yeah, we're building that BlackBerry 10 look and feel in our own custom theme now. So we couldn't use Theme Roller for this because it's just way too advanced and we have way too many things going on. But Theme Roller is a great choice to do that nice look and feel for your app. But if you really want the BlackBerry 10 look and feel, definitely recommend the BlackBerry 10 theme for jQuery Mobile. So let's get started with the theme. Go and download it here. It went up on GitHub just before the keynote. So github.com/BlackBerry jQuery Mobile BB10 theme. So as Mike was saying, about adding the different scripts and headers in, we've really simplified this for you. As opposed to having to put all the different, your jQuery version and your jQuery Mobile version and your theme version, we're all just bundling it in two different files. So it just makes it very simple to include into your application. if you want that flexibility to do your own specific jQuery mobile instance or your specific jQuery version, we do have them separated, but I do recommend using this one. So the BlackBerry 10 supports all the old jQuery mobile controls, and we've also extended the theme to include new controls that are specific to BlackBerry 10. So I'm going to go over them, and we've also added a new transition for you to go more with the BlackBerry 10 flow. So here's some of the controls that are originally in jQuery, and this is just how they look currently in BlackBerry 10. Our toggle buttons, our sliders, our progress bars, segmented controls, title bars, and checkboxes. And these are all having that nice, clean, native-looking feel. And they'll have some nice CSS animations associated with them, too. So I'll do a demo in a second and showing those animations. But let's go on to some of the new controls. So this is our action bar. You guys probably have seen this everywhere since the keynote. It's showing up at the bottom and allows you to have it kind of a navigational area where tabs are navigation. You're switching between different views, and actions, these ones up here, are kind of things you act on, like copy and paste, those different things. What's cool about the action bar is jQuery Mobile just handles the overflows and stuff for you. So if you start putting more than 5 actions or more than 5 tabs in here, they'll start going up in the overflow, and same with the action overflow here. So these will come in, slide in from the side. So let me show you a demo right now how that looks. Can we go to 2? So this was the BBM clone that was shown in the keynote. So you can see here we have the 3 tabs at the bottom, and action overflow and a tab overflow. And like I was just saying, so all the extra ones, we're going to have this nice animation to slide over, show the different tabs. We can switch here, and we switch to that new view. Same with our actions. These are not hooked up to anything right now, but you can hook them up and do some different things with them. Okay. So can we go to 3? So let's see how this looks in code. Three. Good. So this is the action bar I was just telling you. Let's get it up. Okay, so right now we're running this in Ripple. Has everybody seen Ripple over the last few days? Awesome tool to definitely see how this is going to look and feel on your desktop without actually having to put it on the device. So here's our tabs, our tab overflow, our action overflow, and let's see how we can go about in changing this look and feel a bit. So let's just rip this out. And we're just going to have 3 tabs instead. So it's going to automatically just size that accordingly and without having to do anything with it. So instead of tabs, we want actions. Let's rip out all of our tabs. So now we just have actions. So there is our 3 actions and our overflow. So we have the 4th overflow button gets thrown up here. Okay, dead simple. Like this is a very easy way to get these controls and work for you. Okay, so if you want a back button, div data role equals back. Can't type. Okay, so this should give us a back button now, and now we can hook that up to a back button. So just very quick, easy BB10 way to get that navigation model. Okay, can we go back to 1? Okay, so grid lists. These are awesome ways to show media-rich content. So content that has images associated to them, titles. So think about displaying your pictures. If you have like a social media app, someone's pictures or different lists, profiles, or things like that. These are all dynamically handled for you. You don't have to do any sizing or anything like that. It's just about having the content in there. All you do is specify a row, and then you put the different items inside the row, and it will automatically scale them for you. So let's see how this would look in code. Can we go back to 3? So here's our grid view. So now we're just doing a data role grid view. Like I was saying, this is a new control, not currently in jQuery mobile. So you will have to refer to our documentation in the GitHub repo that I showed earlier for the BB10 specific theme. So this is our divider. That was the, where is it? Here. That is that last played divider here. These are optional. You do not need them. So we can just take that out and see quickly that it's fine without it. So like I was saying, here's that data role equals row, and we're just specifying what's going to be in our row of items. So as you've seen in the first one, there's one big image. We only have one item in that row. Let's just let's grab another one from another row. Oops. Can everyone see that code? Is it too small? It's good? Too small? A little small? Bigger? Better? Too big? Oh no. Okay. So we have our data role equals grid view, and here's our data role equals row, and here's where we're specifying the different items. So if we want another picture to show up in that very first row, we just do this, bring that new div up there, and bam, it's done. So it's just dead simple to have that nice BB10 look and feel for the grid view. So see that, like, and the hello message is just this here. It's a data role details. We can add it to another one if we want. Here, I just closed the program. And we have another hello. Like, it's just really about speed and ease of getting this into a BlackBerry 10 look and feel. So if we scroll all the way to the bottom, we can see that this is all these different items have laid out for us nice and simply. Like, we can add another one in here, and it'll just keep getting smaller and smaller. Obviously, you should use some you should really think about and consider how small you want these items, but it's really flexible and it's up to you. Can we go back to 1? Progress indicators. So this is also something new for BB10, not currently in the jQuery mobile project. So we're just using the standard HTML5 progress element. So we're not creating any new elements. We are making nice, clean, semantic HTML. We're just styling it appropriately. So let's see how this looks in some code. Back to 3. So here's our progress. And this is the default value. So we're setting the current value. For anyone not familiar with the progress tag. So we're setting what the current value of the progress bar is, and we're setting its max value. Okay? And then with just this, the jQuery mobile theme for BlackBerry 10 is going to style this correctly. There's also an API associated with this plugin. So you can set the error message, so we can set it if the error or progress, so it's different states, so we can see if, have that visual feedback if something's gone wrong. We can also programmatically set the value of the progress bar. So can we go to number 2, please? So here's a live demo, and you can see it's a little hard to tell from the screen, but there's an animation right here. So this is something being downloaded. You can't see it at all with this resolution, but this is animating in here, showing you that something is moving, that we're currently in progress. And then, like I was showing you, we have different states. So we can go to a pause state, an error state, back to pause, back to start, and here is us programmatically going through and changing it. And there's our completed state. Again, a different look and feel. We can reset it. So we have a nice clean API associated with this and a nice clean HTML semantic markup. Can we go back to 1? Input validation. Another thing that's not currently in jQuery mobile. So this gives you that ability to show your users that the form is correctly filled in right away without having to submit the form and say, no, this is wrong, and send them back. So they can just be typing away, and then bang, it's ready to go. It's valid. They know that they can move on to the next step. So that's what happens here with these check marks and this exclamation mark. You don't have to add anything in here. jQuery Mobile BlackBerry 10 theme is just going to take care of this for you and show it appropriately. So can we go to 2? Okay. So right now we're currently there, and we see that it's not valid. What we want to do is enter the text valid, and it will go into the validated state. It is case sensitive, so I have to go back and forth with the V. So bang, it's there, and we know that it's valid now. And we can just move on. It's a nice, clean visual indicator to your user that this is good to go. OK. Code. Can we go to number 3? Pardon? Up the font again? Yeah, each file is going to have to be up. Just someone remind me if I don't do it. Use VI. If you guys want me to use VI, I will go to VI. OK, so here's our text validation. Just simple input. Here's our placeholder. This is HTML5. We're not doing anything special here. We're saying required, and we're giving the pattern for the validation. And this is the placeholder text. This is not something we're creating. This is part of the markup and the HTML5 standard. So you just include this in, and like I said, jQuery Mobile BB10 theme will take care of this for you and give you that nice, clean visual indicators. OK. Back to 1. Dropdowns. So dropdowns is nothing new to jQuery Mobile, but dropdowns have not been done like this in jQuery Mobile. So the way jQuery Mobile currently does it is it either uses the native dropdown, or it also, you can use the custom dropdown, which is a pop-up in jQuery Mobile. Neither one really works well for this feel of the BB10 thing, BB10 theme. So it's been recreated, and now we have the dropdown style with the check mark on which one is selected. So let's see how this looks on the device. So let's go to number 2. So here's our dropdown here. We'll expand it, and here's our check mark. So we can just quickly click through our different options, close that option back up, and just carry on about our flow. It's not popping up another pop-up. It's not using the native one, which is a bit confusing to users. even though it's native, it's confusing because it's not that native feel. It's a web native feel. So it's not quite the same experience. So this is much closer to the native experience that users are accustomed to. So you don't have the feeling of this is a web app and I don't really like it. This is all about feeling like a native app and showing your users that they can't tell the difference. Like, it's really about having just that awesome experience, that awesome BlackBerry 10 experience. I won't show any code for this because we haven't changed anything. It's the exact same select markup that you use in jQuery mobile. We're just not doing the dropdowns anymore. So nothing has changed. It's just how we implement it underneath is just styling is changing. OK. Can we go back to 1? So all about the flow, BlackBerry flow. And we have added the cover transition. So this is a transition to go between pages. It's not currently in jQuery mobile. The closest they have is a slide, possibly, where the image is sliding over, but they're both sliding over simultaneously, as opposed to this one sliding over top of one another. So it's a brand new transition. And again, just to keep that native feeling to your application. Can we go to number 2? OK. So you're going to see the transition when I click on this link. See how it just covers, and we can go back, and it just uncovers. It's that nice, clean, native look and feel. It's not flashing. It's not fading in, fading out. It's not sliding over. It's that BlackBerry 10 flow. So how does this look? Can we go to 3? Size. Thank you. Good. Visible. OK. So nothing new to jQuery mobile. We're just adding on that link. We're just saying data transition equals cover right here. And that's going to take care of all of the things underneath for us, just like you would do any other ones. Right now, the default's set to fade in part of jQuery mobile. You can change your default to cover if you like. That's really up to you. Can we go back to 1, please? So yeah, that's about it for the new controls, new field. We do have a roundtable to talk a bit more about this if you want to come and see us, 6 p.m. If you want to keep tweeting about it, talking about it, we'll be checking out the hashtag Jam29 and always BBJam to keep the conversation going. And yes, the conference app. You guys love it, I'm sure. And thank you. Any questions? Yes? Can you just go up to the mic so we can get the audio?
Yep. OK. When you pulled up the keyboard in the jQuery kind of app there, I noticed the navigation pane was pushed up as well. Is there a way to fix that, to keep it on the bottom so that the keyboard would go over it?
That will have to be investigated and released further. Right now, the theme is in a beta state, and we will be constantly progressing it as we continue closer to launch. So that is definitely something that we can look into. Yes?
Hey, long-time listener, first-time caller. The BlackBerry theme is Apache licensed, correct?
Yes, Apache 2 license.
What's the difference between that and the MIT license that jQuery uses? I'm just curious what the limitations are or anything like that.
Yeah, if Eduardo can come up here or OK. Eduardo is our open source expert at RIM.
I wouldn't describe it as the expert, but I play that role. So we normally use Apache 2 for our licenses. It's the one that we're most familiar with. It has a long history about the uses of the license. From your perspective, the only difference would be If you ask some people in the Free Software Foundation, they may indicate that MIT is compatible with GPL v2 and Apache 2 might not. That's the only. So unless you have a GPL v2 application that you care about that particular nuance, it shouldn't make a difference.
Does that answer your question? Awesome. Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Edgar. If you had to create a project with web technologies and you have to choose between BBUI and this approach, what would be your advice or your...
So are you doing cross-platform or are you doing BlackBerry only?
BlackBerry only, for example.
BlackBerry only. So really this comes down to personal preference. Both BBUI and jQuery Mobile have very consistent look and feel for BlackBerry 10. And it's going to come down to a lot of style and what you like to use.
But jQuery Mobile is more standard, right? So
exactly. jQuery Mobile is more standard, and it does have a large team working on the core project. But again, it's really up to you. We are pushing both to have a nice, clean BlackBerry 10 look and feel to them.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm new to jQuery Mobile. A lot of the examples had somewhat static references to images and things like that. If I wanted the UX to be more data-driven, like actually pulling menu items out of a database or pulling image references out of a database, what do you recommend in terms of like the integration between jQuery Mobile and any kind of a SQL or other storage backend, cloud storage?
Yeah, that's a big question right now.
Okay.
The apps that we build, there's a range of what you can do. So are you thinking like app on the device only or app that's connected to a backend service over the web?
Over the web.
Okay, so over the web, what we would likely do is jQuery Mobile, it does have some sort of application configuration stuff in it that would overlap with like a Backbone.js. But we would typically bring in like a Backbone.js, handle your page routing, handle your data views. jQuery Mobile, when you render something out, sort of goes through that initial, here's my markup, flash to the markup to what you actually see. There's a refresh there. So you can change the underlying DOM just the way you would with jQuery itself, item.append. Then you have to call this refresh method. That's all you have to do there, and then you can move into Backbone. Backbone will then manage your AJAX to go get data from a backend over AJAX calls. We use something called Amplify.js.
Okay.
Amplify.js sort of handles where your data is coming from. It also provides local storage, so you can cache data on the device. And then we got another project, anything we do mobile that could be disconnected now, we always implement the disconnected state. We have another project called Machina.js. That's a JavaScript, very, very simple finite state machine that we can implement, different behavior when you do online or offline state in your app.
Okay.
So there's a lot of pieces here. In Pen 2, we're putting out more guidance on that question because it's a big one right now.
Thank you.
No problem. Come on down.
My name is James. We have developed several jQuery mobile applications, but we didn't release those applications. The reason was, pretty much on every platform, it's not as smooth as we want. It's kind of slow and jumpy, and we tried different approaches, but we could not get it work. But we have used Ajax to get JSON directly. We tried a hybrid. We went to native, and then we write our own API and use JavaScript to get information back, and then display it with jQuery mobile. But it's kind of jumpy. It flash screen and then comes back and then go back, whatever.
Yep.
So can you give us some indication how can we resolve those problems, and how can we make it smooth? And I'm not even talking about those old devices. For example, BlackBerry OS 5, OS 6. They are pretty much very ugly, right? And but even for the newer devices, I cannot get it work as smooth as we want. So,
Sure.
Any suggestion?
This is something we've definitely been tackling as part of the jQuery mobile team. All the different platforms have different ways of doing things, and we've been trying to make as many improvements as possible on all the different platforms to get everything as smooth and seamless as possible. It's a constant battle. There's always more devices coming. There's always more operating systems coming. So we're constantly pushing to get more and more of these devices as awesome as possible. As far as BB10, it's running very smoothly and looking very nicely. So definitely check it out for BB10. I think it's definitely the answer for that. For some of the other devices, there are some workarounds. There are some things that have been recommended but are not necessarily recommended for all platforms, so you may have to do some specific hacks for your specific platform. Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Performance slowdowns can come from really odd places in how you're sort of architecting your app and how you're approaching it. One big thing in regards to the framework in particular, I don't know what version of jQuery mobile you were focusing on, but in talking to Todd Parker, the lead of the project, 1.1 was really what 1.0, he hoped 1.0 would have been, in the sense that it was a lot smoother. It kind of smoothed out that sort of friction. And it's sort of the nature of the beast, and we're working on it to improve that as much as possible. So you're not alone. We'll all get in a group and complain about it together.
Well, we tried jQuery mobile on desktop browser.
Yeah.
It worked pretty good. But for the mobile browsers, I think it's because of the resource limitation. That's why you are getting those ugly look and feel.
Mm-hmm.
And is there some way we can limit the use of resources? Yeah, I think one of the biggest problem with jQuery mobile is it uses huge resources. You have to load the whole thing into the device,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when you do that, it uses up all the heap memory. And in that case, then you probably have to handle the memory by the OS or whatever. And then in that case, you got a lot of problems. So maybe if you can give developers certain thing, we are able to limit the use of heap memory,
Yeah.
whatever, then that might be the work. Or we limit the load of resource, only the part we are using, whatever.
That gets to be a little bit tough because there's a lot of application-specific concerns there instead of framework level concerns. The framework level, if you load a list of 1,000 items, you're going to run out of memory. There was a great quote the other day about just loading up a page, dropping jQuery, not even jQuery mobile on the page, uses 1/5000th of the iPhone 4's battery. So you reload it 5,000 times, you'll kill your phone, right? There's just the raw performance numbers. That's just the cost that you pay for the ease of development. So when you get into your application specifically, when we've built interfaces and built applications and tried to iron out those rough edges, it comes down to little just tips and tricks, techniques for how much you're loading into the DOM, how you're managing that, how you're managing and what devices you're targeting. So it gets to be very customized very, very quickly. We do a lot of performance tuning engagements. Every single one's different. So it's kind of hard to give an answer. I know from a framework level perspective, the choice for jQuery Mobile to sort of hold its initial configuration in markup was a design decision targeting those older browsers, right? It wanted to have that fallback capability. Well, your competitor frameworks, like take a Sencha Touch, they hold their configuration in a JSON object. So they're one step ahead because jQuery Mobile has to read the DOM. It creates the same JSON object behind the scenes, and then it does its thing. That's why you have to call the refresh method whenever you would change the DOM. Is it easier to work with? Yeah, I mean, jQuery Mobile is arguably easier to get into, maintain. Developers are familiar with it. So there's trade-offs. I think the modern phones, we've seen it work with great success. So I know that performance is very much on the mind of the framework team. So it's kind of hard to say whether it's an application level issue or a framework level issue at this point. But I know they care about it. That's why I say we can all sit in a circle and sing Kumbaya about it. It's an important issue.
Okay, well, I think we're about out of time. So if any of you have more questions, you can either come up and see us after this, or like I said, we're at the roundtables a bit later.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Follow us on Twitter or